Thank you very much for inviting me today to speak at your very promising, valuable conference. When Swamiji approached me to say a few words today, I felt very privileged to be asked because although I've not had a chance to hear any of the speakers today because I've been at meetings all day, from the program I could see that there are a whole lot of very eminent speakers, philosophers, gurujis, experts. And so I feel particularly honored that I've been asked to join you all to say something about education as a pathway to peace. I do know we have colleagues who are academics and will be speaking from perhaps a purely academic perspective on the subject. I thought I'll make it slightly different. As Sir has announced my background, I'm a political scientist. Perhaps sounds very shallow compared with so many of you who are experts in philosophy and have done so much that I'm a straight policy analyst. And I spent 30 years in University of London, both in teaching and research, and excuse me, in senior administrative roles. But the real enlightening for me came when 5 years ago, I took the leap from School of Oriental and African Studies to join the Asian University for Women. And I say this because it's a very unique university with a very definite mission and very unique mission which fits your theme of education, peace, conflict resolution. Primarily because the mission is to attract young women from very hard to reach communities and who have no access to education. So that's being the mission. Majority of our students come from extremely vulnerable groups, conflict areas, Afghanistan, Syria, Palestine, Yemen. We also have young women from the hill tribes, the Dalits, the tea estates in Assam, in Sri Lanka, and in Bangladesh, and also from the garment factories, where women are primarily there as income generators for their families. But they have the potential, they have the competency to study, but deprived of education. Now, what does it tell us about the university? It is a liberal arts university, liberal arts curriculum, which focuses on certain specific skills, imparting students with skills in critical thinking, in reasoning, in questioning, in being independent learners. And we focus on whole person education, not simply formal education, one that goes beyond classroom teaching. How does this fit with the theme of education as good education as a pathway to peace? I'll try and weave some of my thinking. I'm very happy to take questions later on about the university and how we do it. And I'll try and bring together my thoughts with what we actually implement at the university. Now, these last 2 years have been the most challenging. Global pandemic, civil unrest, climate disasters all around the world. They've threatened the health, safety, and economic livelihood of billions of people. Social inequalities have been brought to the fore. And we do believe now is a time that desperately calls for leadership, courage, ingenuity, and crucially, peace. This conference couldn't be more timely, particularly as we are witnessing in Afghanistan, where there's widespread fear that the Taliban will reintroduce its notorious system of gender segregation from when the group ruled in the late 1990s, which barred girls from accessing almost everything, work, the right to vote, and access to education. predominantly. At the Asian University for Women, the second largest cohort of students are from Afghanistan. About 14% of our student population of the 1,000 we have currently enrolled. Followed by young women from displaced communities, such as the Rohingya women from Myanmar, young women from Syria, Palestine, Yemen, all the conflict zones. They constitute another 11% of our student body. And the last few months, you can imagine, have been pretty challenging, dominated by our efforts at evacuating a lot of our Afghani students and our alumni out of Kabul, out of various remote areas in Afghanistan. And like I said, I'm very happy to take questions on that in the Q&A that follows this presentation. Education has been proclaimed as one of the most powerful weapons you can use to change the world. I recall Nelson Mandela who said that. Through quality education for all around the globe, by promoting education for peace, young people can be the voice of change and peace. You'll all know Confucius said it as far as back as 6th century BC. Education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, hope breeds peace. Knowledge is a key confidence builder. It allows one to feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of self-assuredness, to be fearless and to grow in quite unexpected ways. And confidence in turn sparks motivation, optimism, or hope, as Confucius said, to work towards peace. Education, of course, also encourages independent thinking, and it opens doors to new ideas so that we can try to make sense of the world we live in, world around us, and draw our own conclusions instead of relying on others, blindly following the beliefs of others around us. Independent thinkers are more likely to be leaders towards positive change. Quality education also encourages critical thinking and problem solving, skills that lead to innovative solutions, to work in harmony, to work together, to attain peace. The Asian University for Women is a liberal arts university, and we promote, as I said, whole person education, lifelong learning, inculcate independent learning. And our curriculum focuses on developing those skills, the critical thinking, reasoning, problem solving. And this is a case that I'll be arguing for later as to why it's imperative that a curriculum should imbibe these virtues. Most of our graduates return to their communities after graduation. They want to be leaders. They want to be change makers. As we speak today, there are at least 80 of our graduates working in Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar, which is not very far from where our university is located. They work for national and international NGOs, such as World Food Programme, UNHCR, Save the Children, and International Organization for Migration, and organizations like Doctors Without Borders, Library Without Borders, and so on. Education enables communication skills to be honed, and communication is the key to solving conflict. For students to work with their communities to solve problems, or to do so on a global scale. When we recruit students to the Asian University for Women, we test them for these qualities. We test them for their skills in communication, empathy, courage, outrage at injustice. We believe these skills are of greater value than scores in maths or science or arts, because these are values that go to building leadership qualities and bringing the best out of individuals. The Human Rights Conventions declared education must prepare a child for responsible life and effective participation in a free society, in a spirit of understanding, peace, tolerance, equality of sexes and friendships among all peoples, ethnic, national, and religious groups, and persons of indigenous origin. We believe that with a good education, a student can learn the quality of empathy and understanding towards those who are different from themselves. Students become more accepting of others. They learn to respect one another. At AUW, we have students from 19 different countries, all living together in a very small space. They learn how to live with each other, who are very different from themselves. Their classmates come from very different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religions, different castes, and different countries. They may even belong to groups against whom they might have held prejudice before actually arriving at the university. But by living and learning together, they move past any preconceptions about their peers and form lasting friendships. More importantly, they begin to mend some of the fences that divide the world at present. It reminds me of what Einstein said: peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding. And I can give you very good examples later on about how students from Sri Lanka and Tamil groups who never got along in their home countries undertake projects at AUW, go back, return to Sri Lanka, and work together to build the communities and mend any differences between them. What was once out of reach for girls we recruit from the remote areas, conflict zones, or displaced communities, say their ambition to become a teacher, a researcher, or a policymaker, are now possibilities. And with these careers in place, many of our graduates go back to their work, to work within their communities, to support their families, often promoting peace. Our Rohingya students study in the hope that they will eventually return to the communities in Myanmar and help rebuild the lives of their families and friends left behind and lift them out of poverty. And that's their specific ambition. We recruit from within camps. We recruit from those settled just outside the camps. A study by UNESCO found that income around the world would be 23% higher per capita in countries with education for all. If poverty were reduced, violence would follow suit. And just one another point, which I think we need to bear in mind: educated citizens are less likely to stand for government corruption. They can spur more government accountability. They're more likely to participate in political discussions, town meetings, decision-making, therefore leading to a government that represents its citizens across the board equally in a peaceful and balanced manner. Education is important for the progress of the society, and we all need to invest in it. The World Economic Forum every year cites inequality and joblessness as the top risk factor for the world, reflecting the urgency for investing more in quality education that will equip every child today to deal with the challenges of tomorrow. One might assume that the governments were equally cognizant of this, concerned with the cause, and are actually working to deliver the best possible quality in education. But the reality defeats us. Available statistics shows that the dire reality is actually something quite different. Although education is a fundamental right of every citizen, regardless of which nation, religion, ethnicity, or culture to which they belong. Many remain deprived of this right. For the school year ending in 2018, for example, about 258 million children and youth were out of school. The total includes 59 million children of primary school age, 62 million of lower secondary school age, and 138 million of upper secondary age. Another 130 million children can barely read or write, even though they're attending primary school. And 75 million children aged 3 to 18 live in countries facing war and violence and are in dire need of educational support. While these are rising problems of poverty, there are problems of poverty, climate change, terrorism, violation of basic human rights, and unemployment. It is disheartening to see that governments' investments in primary and secondary education particularly has lowered in recent years. And this is across the board worldwide. We also have seen donor aid to basic education also dropped in the last decade, particularly between the years 2005 to 2012. UNESCO estimates that there is an annual external financing gap of $39 billion to give quality pre-primary, primary, and secondary education to all children by 2030. These stark statistics gives us enough reason to take action. From my vantage point of view, as someone leading a higher education institution, I would urge governments to invest appropriately, encourage institutions to redefine themselves. And I'd say that to do so radically, to address the pressing issues of equity, access, inclusion, and quality. What we do need today are resilient universities capable of steering us in the right direction. Our systems are far too rigid. Regulatory framework is inflexible, and we lack nimbleness. What we desperately need is the agility, if I may say, that will enable institutions to think innovatively, differently about how to realign their structures, their processes, and their behaviors to adapt to the changing world. I would like to end there, but I do want to say, I do believe in this very passionately. It's not for nothing that I left University of London to go to a region which is steeped in poverty. And but this institution in Bangladesh gives me hope that we can address these issues, particularly looking after these young women from very fragile countries where they have absolutely no access to even the basic education, that we would make a difference in the years to come. Thank you.